House lawmakers will vote whether to reelect Mike Johnson as Speaker tomorrow. And President-elect Trump is now calling on Republicans to fall in line and support him. Speaking to reporters from his Mar-a-Lago estate on New Year's Eve, Trump said he would be willing, if necessary, to make calls to lawmakers to drum up support for Johnson in order to help him keep the gavel.
They'll support Speaker Johnson. I think we're going to have a great time in Washington, and I think we're going to get great support. He's the one that can win right now. People like him. Almost everybody likes him. Others are very good, too, but they have 30 or 40 people that don't like him. So that's pretty tough. We're going to get a successful vote. He's a good man. He's a wonderful person, and that's what you need.
Because of the GOP's slim majority, Johnson can only afford to lose one vote tomorrow. Republican Congressman Thomas Massie's already come out against Johnson. No other Republican has publicly said they would vote against the Speaker, but some have questioned whether Johnson will get enough support to stay in power. Joining us now, congressional reporter for The Hill, Michael Schnell. Michael, good morning. Good to see you. Donald Trump, the president-elect, had been content to let Johnson sort of twist in the wind for a week or so there after the fight over the continuing resolution, the spending measure. Now he is supporting Johnson. Talk to us about what sort of difference that might make, and what's the latest you've heard in terms of the whip count, whether there's simply enough votes to get him through.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan. Good morning and Happy New Year. Trump's endorsement did finally come a few days ago. And you're right. President-elect Trump was essentially letting Johnson twist in the wind after he gummed up that government funding process late last month. And his endorsement is helping to shore up some support. We have seen some hardline Republicans now throw their backing behind Johnson. For example, Congressman Josh Brecheen and Congressman Paul Gosar, two members of the House Freedom Caucus, have since said that they will support Speaker Johnson, but that is not unanimous throughout the House Republican Conference. You mentioned Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, was always against Johnson and re-upped that opposition even after the Trump endorsement. And we're hearing from a handful of other Republicans that they still remain undecided and unswayed by President-elect Trump's endorsement. That's people like Chip Roy, Scott Perry, Andy Harris, Andy Biggs. We're still seeing these folks keep their cards very close to their vest. So you ask what the whip count is. It's a little difficult to say because some of these lawmakers are saying that they remain undecided. But even that in itself is a problem for Mike Johnson. Beforehand, before Kevin McCarthy, these speaker races used to be routine, more ceremonial processes because the conference, whether it was Democrats or Republicans, were really united around their nominee. That obviously was not the case with Kevin McCarthy. It's obviously not the case this time around. So any of that discontent and skepticism is a problem for Mike Johnson, and you said it correctly. He can only afford to lose one vote. He can't afford to lose any other votes other than Thomas Massie if all Republicans and Democrats are in the chamber and vote for a specific candidate. So right now, Johnson is in trouble.
Michael, Johnson is the speaker because the former speaker, Kevin McCarthy, was ousted after changing the rules to allow for one person, just one member, to call for a vote in removing the speaker. Well, now these new House rules that Speaker Johnson and Steve Scalise have unveiled and the other Republican leadership, they changed that threshold to 9. Can you just talk about the dynamics currently within the Republican conference and how they arrived at that number?
Yeah, that's right. So, Simone, that was a sensitive negotiation that went on. It came together, rather, in November, right before the speaker election, right before Republicans came around and, remember, unanimously nominated Johnson to be speaker then. There were negotiations between the conservative House Freedom Caucus, who we so frequently hear about, and then the Main Street Caucus, which likes to call himself more of a pragmatic group. That group had negotiated that 9-member threshold for motion to vacate. Members in the Main Street Caucus wanted to increase that threshold from 1 member because we saw what happened to Kevin McCarthy back in 2023 when former Congressman Matt Gaetz brought a motion to vacate that was successful. But members of the Hardline Freedom Caucus did not want to bring it up too much. So they negotiated this 9-member threshold, the thought being that if there's enough support to oust the speaker, then it would rise above the 9-person threshold. Right now, it does not seem like there's no indication, rather, that lowering that threshold once again is on on the table. Of course, that was one of the linchpins that led to former Speaker Kevin McCarthy's success back in early 2023 when he first tried to get the speakership. Right now, though, I haven't heard from any hardline conservatives that they're pushing for that threshold to be lowered. Of course, anything can change. These are very tenuous negotiations, and there's not a lot of time before that speaker's race tomorrow. And if Johnson fails on the first ballot, he's going to be feverishly trying to talk to his colleagues to get to a resolution. But at this moment, it does not seem like lowering the threshold for motion to vacate is on the table or even a request among hardliners who are holding out.
On the topic of Congress, also the attack in New Orleans could be investigated on Capitol Hill now. Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri is requesting that Alejandro Mayorkas and Christopher Wray both testify in front of the Senate. He says that the Secretary of Homeland Security and the outgoing FBI director, respectively, should provide answers about what happened. So, Michael, let's talk about the possibility that politics will get involved here with this investigation. But also, there's a growing theory in the hours after the attack on the right that if there's a new focus on terrorism and on national security, that might ease the confirmation process for some of Donald Trump's picks for posts in that realm, including FBI Director Patel, the Attorney General pick, Pam Bondi, Tulsi Gabbard, national security, and perhaps even Pete Hegseth at defense.
Yeah, Jonathan, it's not so much even a theory on the right. It's something that we're already kind of hearing folks push for. We heard from Senator John Thune yesterday, who is, of course, the incoming Senate Republican leader, going to be such a key figure in all these conversations about confirmation hearings and votes. And John Thune himself said in a statement following the two tragedies yesterday, saying this is a clear reason why we need to expeditiously confirm Trump's national security nominees. And as you mentioned, that group includes some of the most controversial of the few: Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel. So we're currently starting to see some dates for when these confirmation hearings will happen. We've heard that Pete Hegseth is going to take place on January 14th. Unclear when the others are going to take place so far. But I do suspect that we will hear this argument among Republicans saying this is why we need President-elect Trump's nominees to be in place. We need to have a full team ready and installed to take on these challenges. Whether or not that'll be convincing enough for a smooth confirmation process, unclear. We know that all of those nominees carry their fair share of baggage, and more could come out during these hearings. So it's a very volatile situation at the current moment.